Hey everyone, and welcome to the Magical Miracle Network. My name is Ruth Perkinson, and I'm very excited to be with all of you today. We have close to 100 subscribers on this channel, and I just want to say how grateful I am for all of you who have subscribed. Thank you so much. Today we have a beautiful spirit with us today. Her name is Clair Norman, and I met her a few months ago through a mutual friend, and immediately found out that she has this arsenal, this bastion of spiritual gifts, these energetic gifts. And I really wanted to bring her on today to share her story with all of you. And so, Claire, welcome to the network.
Oh, thank you so much, Ruth. It's been, I did start watching and joined the YouTube channel and have had some time to settle in. I think, it's always never ending, but I'm so drawn and find myself visiting often and really I don't know that I've missed many of your episodes, but I'm just honored and thrilled to be here with this amazing network of people and, led by your gifts. I'll throw that back, the things that you've been able to do and our mutual friend and the many people we now share that we hold in prayer and in high intention together, and our dreams for bringing in light to the world. It just feels so right and perfect, and it was all meant to be. And I'm thrilled to be here today to talk a little bit more about the nuances of how it all happens and how we sustain these great energies we share.
Absolutely. I loved everything you said there. And I love the idea of bringing light into the world. And we're going to talk a lot about that today, bringing light into this world of form, this dense place that we are in, so that we can begin to really share our stories, how we got to where we are, and then how we can, anything from our story that we really learned and any sort of nuggets of wisdom we can share with beings out there, because that's the point. We just talked about that before we hit record about how are we getting the 100 people on this network, what do they need to hear today from this particular interview. So before we kind of go in there, I'd like to know a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are. You have a beautiful website and you've done so many amazing things. You guys, she's a great speaker. She's a writer. She's a PR specialist. And she does so much work with the CKG Foundation here locally in Richmond, as well as some other nonprofits. So I just kind of want to kind of lend it back over to you or lean back into you, and you can share a little bit about any of that or all of that.
Thank you.
And tell us about your backstory.
Well, thank you for that opportunity. And you might know, or some of you that might have been lucky to get interviewed with Ruth, but we pulled an angel card before we got started. And the angel card, funnily enough, was about ego. And I always hesitate telling my story. It feels so egocentric, and I resist that. I'm like, it's me and my story, but really it's our story. What I'm going to share about maybe where I am in my journey is really a reflection of pieces of all of us. And so please know that is the place I come from when I say, a little about me and where I've been. So, and so Ruth knows I came, my name is Claire. I do not have an E on the end of my name. And so I think I came in a certain way. My mom, who's been gone a very long time, and that's a big part of my journey too. She died 27 years ago, and she was a big light in my life, and she was my person. And I was in my mid-20s, and that was a big deal. But jumping really back to the way my name is spelled, my mom said, "Oh, Claire just means light and airy, and I just, I don't want that E." And because she also was had a Southern accent, and she thought putting that E just made you hang on to the R too long, and she just liked a more airy spelling. And I really
That's so funny.
It is. And so, here I am, a seeker. I came in that way and continue to seek. I have 3 children, and my youngest daughter, her name's Jane. We share a birthday, and I call her Curious Jane because she's also full of questions. And, that's just, she's my teacher. So many, people are, Ruth, you guys, all of us, we're teaching each other. But, regarding just kind of journeys and staying open to spirit and growing and Ruth mentioned that she's helping me uncover some gifts, and she's so inclusive with all of us that we have these gifts in us. And, really accessing those, and those of us that want to really use them purposefully. This is just a wonderful community to do so. But so I was raised Catholic, and a lot of people kind of have a giggle and say we recover from Catholicism and recover from structured religion sometimes. And that might be true. I'll say I'm happily recovering, because I don't know that I'm even recovering. I just am expanded, and
Right.
I love the ritual that came and comes with that kind of way of expressing. But I have really grown into including so much more. And it started young. I remember doing a lot of, Thomas More, a lot of reading from, Marianne Williamson, which of course even ones before her. And,
Yes.
and so just all that kind of connection through word has, and therefore, I became a writer, and that's just part of how I work professionally, and also kind of how I process things. So, I kind of getting a little off track because I get so excited about explaining just normal things, normal
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
I became a yoga teacher,
Yeah.
and I still teach yoga. I do believe so much in our body connection to our spirit
Yes.
experience. And I
Yes.
know Ruth and I will get there a little, maybe some takeaways on ways to invite spirit with just certain ways to hold your body. And
Right.
I'm excited about that. I do work with nonprofits.
Yeah.
I've experienced an amount of loss in my life. We all have. Again, it's not just me,
Right.
but profoundly, I did lose a niece in 2014. She was 16 and died at the finish line of a half marathon of an undiagnosed heart condition. My sister, who's my beloved, also my person. I have 5 siblings. They're all my people, but my youngest sister, Sister Grace, we and a team of people put together a nonprofit to help teens and their influencers with mental health and anxiety. Cameron suffered very deeply with those beyond, what we might think is normal in the spectrum of development. So we've done that.
Yeah. Wow,
And
that's an amazing, what a journey there. Just all of this that you're talking about is really bringing forth so much great wisdom. And so, yeah, I would like to, talk a little bit more about what happened there, if you don't mind. I think people would be very interested in that story,
Sure.
kind of what brought you there, and then what happened, and then what's been born out of that.
Of course. Well, thank you. I always feel honored to speak of Cameron Gallagher. She was wise beyond her years, and had been suffering quite a lot. Was hospitalized. She had engaged in dangerous behavior, and we were worried about her. A lot of times my sister and her nuclear family kind of kept things close because stigma remains, but our organization, which is 10 years old, is working to kind of erase stigma so we can have these conversations about what it feels like to be isolated and anxious and depressed, and the things that are a part of life, because to live is to suffer, but we don't have to suffer in sometimes.
Yes.
And so Cameron, she delightful, beautiful 16-year-old girl, who chose running as a coping mechanism. And she was a competitive athlete, and so this was not new to her. But she really pressed forward and was feeling badly at about mile 12 of this half marathon, and kind of continued on. And really, it was just the most dramatic public fashion. At the end of, she crossed the finish line, and she told my sister, "I don't feel good." And she fell into her parents' arms and died of this undiagnosed, unknown heart cardiac arrhythmia. So it was very public experience. In fact, the story was covered really internationally. To lose a young life in such a public event. But immediately we knew we couldn't let this just be something that we could keep inside and suffer alone. We decided that Cameron, who had known that we needed to learn to speak up about our anxieties and our depression and our mental health, and So she had designed something called the Speak Up 5K, and she was
Yeah.
ready to tell the world all about where she had come and the people that had supported her in her own knowing of who she is, who she was. And she said, my name is Cameron Gallagher. I have depression, but I am not depression. And she said this at 16. So she wanted to put on this 5K event and tell people, 3.1 miles, we can all do that.
Right.
Walk, dance, run, skip, don't do
Right.
it just here, all the things.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so I could go on and on, but really it was about
Right.
taking her dream of a world without stigma
Right.
and putting it into action in ways that maybe youth and young people could maybe be inspired to pay attention to their own mental health early.
Right. Right.
And
And
so that's the
exactly.
goal.
That is what a beautiful light, Cameron. Talk
She,
about light.
yeah,
And what a beautiful light that she presented to so many people. And what was born out of that was that continuation of the inspiration and the light. And I just want to share personally that I have struggled with mental stuff as well. I think we all do in this
oh
world. We
yeah,
all have bouts of depression. We all have bouts of whatever. And 15 years ago, I was in a very dark place. And luckily, we have people around us who can support us and help us. And so I can just say that, yes, we've all been there and we've all had those struggles. And what a gift she's brought into the world. And just, I'm curious, the Speak Up 5K, is that locally here in Richmond?
it is. We've just celebrated our 10th event in this past September, but we do offer it virtually. So we've had people from every state in the country participate. We've had 4 countries across the world participate. Usually at each year is between 2 and 4 countries that have participants. But Ruth, it's interesting when you say the gift and what we bring with education to teens. It's all very it's purposeful and practical, and we want people to know about the skills, but we can't do it without a sense of purpose and that underlying energy of spirit and that drive to turn pain to purpose. Those are kind of maybe cliche phrases, but it really is the truth. And I wanted to mention, Ruth, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but my mother's expression of her own deep very well developed spiritual life was in the Catholic faith. So understanding, people often are triggered by the names of certain religions, but I just want to express this story for exactly what it is.
Yes.
She died of an aneurysm January 12th, 1997. And her brain began to collapse is the wrong word, but she had cellularly, her brain started getting very soft. And so there was sort of a moment, but it wasn't an aneurysm like you think of, like boom, and there it happens. It was about 3 days from when it started.
Right.
But as she lost consciousness, well, let me back up. She was able to be very aware and with us for a number of hours. And then she lost her ability to speak, but we knew she was with us. But and then she lost consciousness. So somewhere between the space of conversation and touch, and then just awareness and touch, we had a priest friend that out of nowhere came to the hospital. I mean, no one had called him. No one had done anything to let anyone know. This was a very sudden event in our life. She was 57.
Right.
And so he went in and brought her communion. And so for her, that's her sense of touch and her sense of connection to God. And he came out to a room, a huge family came out to this room of probably 40 people in a room to lose this angel, this matriarch of a family. And he said, he told all of us, she is in the dying process. She will die, but she's had communion and she is unafraid. And for her at that moment, she had her thing, she had her God moment while she was still with us. And, I'm married 26 years and my husband's not really of any sort of religion. He's super spiritual and all, we talk about those semantics. Sometimes we just don't have the right words, but, when we had children quickly after we got married, I said, I don't know if we have to call it Catholic or not, but I want my kids to have access, the people I love to have access to that one moment, that one thing
Yeah.
when they might be transitioning that they know and believe in and feel
Yes.
very confident
Yes.
is their shepherd toward the transition. And that is why I baptized all three of my kids Catholic. I knew nothing else,
Right.
but I knew that that would be my way of making sure my life as a mother was making sure faith and spirit and belief in wisdom and higher intelligence was always a part of their journey in life. And that was really, I feel now, the legacy my mother left me, and now her grandchildren whom she never met. So I just
That's
somehow
amazing.
felt
Yes.
called to say that.
Yes. Well, no, everything very organic here. And I think that that's very helpful for people to hear, that she had that it was that God moment right there. And it also feels like, kind of pinging back to Cameron, there was a God moment there with her parents. They
Yes. Oh,
were
yes.
unafraid. It feels like to me, of course, that was her journey. And they were there to really cradle her in that experience.
Yes.
And the priest was there to kind of cradle your mom as well. And that's what
Yes.
we do for each other as light. I mean, that's what we're trying to bring into this conversation, is bringing in that we all have our struggles and our challenges, but knowing that there's people around us, we have support, there is a purposeful and practical things we can do for our own well-being as well as others. And that's a beautiful story. And we really often learn from story, don't we?
Yes, we do. We do. And one thing you've taught me, Ruth, that I've really accessed often is, the Holy Spirit's the smartest being in the room always. And so, when we feel ourselves kind of constricted or attaching to things that are causing a ton of fear and discomfort, if we can just remember that the Holy Spirit is the loving kindness, the full acceptance of all of us in our soul journeys, is the smartest and always present in every room. And it really is, talk about practicality. It's truly just like a little mini shift that can happen when we just remember, just remember.
And I think that's a key word right there, is just remembering that there is a holiness inside of all of us. There's a holiness inside of you, a holiness inside of me, and all of us. And that's our true God, which is spirit. And the spirit really is the smartest, the expert in the room, right? We often think, well, I know everything.
Right. Oh, gosh. And, you and I, we have a great friendship and a lot of fun together. And that's the other thing that I think is so unique about, taking this step forward in this community and in this network is having fun with life, having fun with this and having fun with being human. I mean, darn it, we're encased in these bodies because we're beautifully human, but we're also, flawed and funny and gonna make wrong decisions and sometimes, but with the smartest intelligence in the room is never going to leave the room. You just have to get out of the way sometimes and let that sort of take hold.
Exactly. And that's, I'm just going to mention right here, right now, is that it might be helpful, and I'll just ask you this, is that what I've really learned, and I'll just see what your learning is here, is that even when you're alone in a room, and this might be something we can share with all beings who watch this, regardless of the age, whatever, you are not alone. That there is a presence of spirit that is always with you. There is. And if I think, especially with my mother, she's still with us, but she spent many years by herself. And oftentimes I would hear her talk about her isolation and her loneliness. And I was trying to sometimes lovingly impart to her that, hey, Mom, there really is a spiritual presence in the room with you, and you're not alone. And I think that oftentimes, especially young teenagers, sometimes they feel like they're alone. Younger kids might feel like they're alone. Kids in college, they feel like they're alone on this journey. But even when you're by yourself, taking a run in nature, whatever you might be doing, that there is that beautiful presence, always accessible, 100% of the time, always accessible. And it's going to give you good thoughts and right thoughts and beautiful thoughts. And that's your mental health. That is your connection to that mental health, right?
It is. That's so beautifully said. And I'm having kind of a memory or even just something to mention that,
Yes.
one of the things Cameron did a lot, and many of us do, is sort of doodle to kind of, maybe even write down song lyrics or quotes. And one of the things that she wrote in her really, really cute handwriting, I'll say, is "You are not alone." And we have these little, we call them quote cards, or these things in her handwriting that say "You are not alone." And so in her suffering, she knew she wasn't alone, even as she suffered. And we are not alone because the Holy Spirit is with us all the time, but we're also not alone in our suffering. There's
Right.
so many humans that share that suffering of loneliness or isolation. And, when we key into that, and maybe just understand that we share that, it maybe dilutes the density of the feeling. And it's so hard because, we think we're the only ones who, I don't know, whatever it is that's
Right.
causing, the anxiety. We're the only ones that, for a teenager, it might be, didn't get invited to that party. We're the only ones that,
Right.
when there's a whole group of, kids that you've never met that didn't get invited, but go to your school. I mean, those are just those little things that, in that teenage mind, we can kind of bring into reality. But, we have them. I always laugh. I'm like, we're all still in middle school, pretty much. How we can, get worried about the silliest things sometimes. But
I know we're all having our own Seinfeld episode all the time, right?
Oh, 100%.
Why did she do that? Why did he say?
Oh gosh. Oh Lord. I mean, or like, oh God, my hair looked so bad when I saw my friends yesterday. Oh, they probably think I don't do anything. I mean, it's ridiculous, But those are just the daily moments. I mean, we have hits of divinity all day long, and we have hits of humanity, and those they just come just like the others.
Oh, I love what you said there. Hits of divinity and hits of humanity.
Yeah.
Wow. And I like the idea of sharing your personal dark night of the soul, right? And a dark night of the soul can be like you've had 2 or 3 really bad days in a row and you feel like you're not going to be able to get out of it. I mean, that's
right.
Something. It could be a sudden death. When I was a little girl, there was a sudden death of a friend of mine that was killed in a car crash, And so it's like those things, we need to really talk about them and not repress them, because in the repression of that, it causes the illness, it causes the strife, it causes the suffering. And so I think having that shared journey of dark nights of the soul, whatever they look like. A dark night of the soul could just be, you're right, I wasn't invited to that party. I'm feeling kind of dark right now. I'm having this feeling. And being able to share that, hey, we've all been there. We've gotten that T-shirt of hopelessness, in a sense sometimes.
Exactly.
And to share that is very important. And to have a therapist is great. Get a therapist, go to the psychiatrist, go to the priest, go to the counselor. Everybody I feel needs a counselor or a guide or a teacher to help, in some way, shape, or form. So, this is so much fun.
It is fun. It is. And it's, I know one thing I love about your conversations is that they are kind of easily digestible in smaller chunks. I mean, I could talk to you for 3 or 4 hours, but we might lose a few of our subscribers.
Okay, we'll wrap it up. We're going to wrap it up.
No, I don't mean that. I just want to make sure we get to one thing that we had said we'd like to make sure, we share. And that is sort of, what are the takeaways when the conversation's over, when you and I, kind of, leave the screen, and what are things that we've learned? And, as a yoga teacher, I believe so deeply in the visceral experiences of life, emotion, spirit, all the things. And I'm on a quest for people to access the brilliance of their bodies when it comes to, living in life. And I understand we're not always in a great state of health all the time. I mean, that's a spectrum, and that's a reality point. We are either, parts of our bodies are working well or not, but that doesn't mean our health is good or bad. It just means it is doing a thing, and we have to kind of tune into that. But for me, for people to understand the power of the central nervous system and we know this, we know about the amygdala, we know about cortisol, we know what the biologics are of anxiety. And we know how we react to that. But when we sit still in our bodies, and this is this is with prayer, without prayer, if it's just breathing a few minutes to understand where are the tensions, where are the things, where are we held up, and then giving ourselves a moment to realize which thought might be attached to that body part that might feel tense. And I know that sounds a little woo-woo for some, but oftentimes, in your shoulders, you might carry your to-do list, because your brain is only always on that, and your shoulders are just so worried about making sure you get everything done. And so there's these things in our bodies that we can kind of request our bodies to release, and oftentimes other things will follow. And so really the spine for me is just a place to start. And by the way, Christopher Reeve, who we know did not have use of his legs and arms after his horse accident, always claimed to be a yogi till the end, even though he didn't feel sensate into the muscles and bones and ligaments that we hopefully can do to a point. There's a way to still translate this. And this, I just want to give one last little thing. I could do this forever because I do. So important. So your spine, we're brilliantly engineered. Our body is made of hinge joints, right? Our elbows and knees. We have ball and socket joints, our hips and shoulders. And if you look at the way doors open and close, that's a hinge joint. So we have created our lives structurally from what we know of our bodies. And that sort of happened from before we had buildings and we lived in caves, right? We're like, oh boy, this elbow works this way. Let me make a door that might do the same thing. I'm serious.
Yes.
But so this is brilliant. We are brilliantly engineered. But your spine, your spine, which certainly lives where it does. We know this. It is houses your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems. And if we can allow our spine full ability to be where it belongs, that means that we don't have to have good or bad posture, but you can have intentional lift in your chest. Right. And when we do that and we ask our shoulder blades to kind of melt in toward our spine, there's sort of a moment that happens and kind of calls on your low belly. Your low belly has to engage in order to allow your shoulders to sort of come down your spine and be held up. And when that happens, then you're supporting your low back. A lot of times, we walk around with back pain because we're sort of softening down toward, we're protecting, we're sad, we're all the precious things of life. And then oh, wait, I have a spine, and some of us are afflicted with a certain shape, but your body shape is perfect, just like it is, whatever it is. And so if you can just call an awareness to just a millimeter of lift, and sort of lifting the heart up and out of its own little cave, and then allowing the spine or the low belly, which, by the way, is the one of the 7 chakras, is right behind your belly button. So if we're activating that just to stay lifted and present, there's sort of a spirituality that comes to the cells that you're like, oh, I'm open, I'm here. And so there's these tiny things that we can do. We wait in line in the grocery store. We wait in line for everything. And we just remember, oh, let me just take my collarbones and broaden up a little bit. Maybe I can remember to draw my shoulders toward my back like angel wings, and loosen my jaw a little so that, or not loosen, did you know the jaw, is the strongest joint in the body. And so if we can just unclench and allow air to move through the throat. See, this is all biology. You don't even have to be a woo-woo person. This is just knowing, And so I feel like if we just start with an awareness of your back or backbone or spine, there just might be a moment of clarity, or softness or presence that kind of comes in with those little body adjustments. And the last thing I'll say is, when you are in a conversation that's difficult and you are forgetting that the Holy Spirit is really the smartest being in the room, you might notice your body language. You're going to kind of clench, you're going to resist someone else. But if we can just, remember we lead with the heart and just sort of face your heart muscle toward that person and know that you're still protected because the Holy Spirit is the smartest intelligence, then we can kind of be there. We can be there. And so these are body moments, you know.
Yes.
And so I don't want to go on forever, but I just
this is great.
Well,
this is beautiful because that is a great teaching. Everyone out there who's watching this is a really great teaching. And what I'd like to do is invite you back on, once a month, whenever you have time, because I know you're very busy, to give us a really wise teaching in self-care, having that awareness. Because I think that we often forget about self-care. We're giving our energy out, and we forget that we need to start with ourselves first. That any and all beings, really, you are number one first, not in a ego way, but in a spiritual way, in a thoughtful way, in an awareness way. And when you can really be in that zone of aware of your body. And even as you were talking, I was feeling my heart go like this, okay, because there's such intelligence here, right?
Yes.
So, oh my gosh. Well, Claire, you are an amazing spirit. And I feel like we're probably coming a little bit to the end of our session here, our interview here. But you guys, Clair Norman is an amazing spirit. She is a writer, a speaker. She takes part in several different foundations and nonprofits, and does an amazing job there as a yoga teacher. And just has what I would call a Jane of all trades, a bastion of information that we're going to get her back on over and over and over again to share your wisdom. And thank you for your story about your mom, the God moment, and Cameron's, her sharing. Her spirit is still with us. The light is still here. We feel her energy, and her divine plan, was to come in and do these things and to really spread that light. So I love you, Clair Norman. You're the light of the world, and everything that you do, you're touching everyone with your light. So thank you so much for coming on today and being with us. So when I go to find this stop button, I'm going to give you the last, any final thoughts or words or what you want to give to anyone out there.
Oh my gosh. I don't have anything that everybody else doesn't either. I'm thrilled to be in a space of intentionally, shepherding in light into a world that needs it. And I'm so grateful I have a place and a chance to do that, and to serve. I'm just grateful.
That's a great note to end on. I'm grateful for you, grateful for the wisdom that you have and that you're sharing with everybody. So everybody be patient with me as I struggle here to find the stop button. Claire, thank you so much for joining us today. And God bless you.
God bless you. Thank you.